These refillable containers have served the crop protection industry very well. A single 250-gallon refillable container replaces 100 of these 2.5-gallon jugs. If the container is used for 5 years, then 500 jugs do not need to be collected or recycled. EPA first authorized the use of refillable intermediate containers, or minibulks, back in 1977. And since they have become essential to safe and responsible distribution and use of crop protection products. However, nothing lasts forever. Eventually, even the best refillable container must be removed from service and responsibly disposed of or recycled.
Storing damaged and unusable containers costs money and creates risk, especially if they contain regulated levels of hazardous materials. Long-term storage is not a suitable solution. In 2010, the Ag Container Recycling Council, along with the Agribusiness Association of Iowa, piloted a major recycling program. The successful elements of this recycling pilot could be useful in other states. The goal was to clean, identify, inspect, transport, and recycle obsolete or damaged refillable containers before the end of 2010. ACRC member companies, the manufacturers of crop protection products, covered most of the cost of bringing in containers that needed to be recycled. Because some of these containers may not have originated from ACRC members, it is important for the entire industry to share responsibility. In this way, unusable containers can be recycled without the dealer risking costly fines and EPA enforcement action. The involvement of container owners, the distributors or retailers, is vitally important. They possess the minibulks and they will suffer the consequences if they are not managed properly. If they take appropriate action to sort and clean containers for recycling, ACRC member companies are ready to help with a responsible and cost-effective recycling program that benefits the entire industry. But this will only work if there is shared responsibility for these containers. There was a very positive related benefit for agri-industry. The plastic from these containers was segregated from the post-consumer waste stream and used in the manufacture of drain tile and other ACRC-approved end uses.
Another reason for the timeliness of this program is the new container regulations from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. In August of 2011, the EPA will regulate these IBCs under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. Regular performance testing will be required, and containers must be retrofitted if they do not meet the standards.
We've got some older tanks that literally are deteriorating if they get a scratch in them and they spend time out in the sun, of course, which they do in the weather. You'll see tanks that will literally crack.
The initial goal of the Iowa pilot is to engage the agri-dealer community to take action and evaluate all their minibulk containers as to their usefulness. If the container has lost its structural integrity or will be expensive to retrofit, this program gives the dealer the means to properly dispose of it with minimal effort and expense, and to avoid costly fines after the 2011 rule is in effect. There is a financial cost and a commitment to get into the game, but we hope that agri-dealers will see that it is well worth the time, effort, and investment. Agri-dealers can pay a little this year to solve a problem, or wait until next year and risk significantly higher cost or fines and business interruption.
We will start with the identification of containers and evaluation of their structural integrity. Then we'll turn to proper identification of the labeling, followed by cleaning and management of pesticide rinsate, categorizing for inspection, and finally transport and recycling. The Ag Container Recycling Council worked with the Agribusiness Association of Iowa to offer a pilot program to collect and recycle obsolete minibulk containers. The pilot helped ACRC and stakeholders in the agricultural chemical industry better understand the variables and processes needed to effectively manage disposal of this type container. It is expected that the Iowa pilot will serve as a model to effectively manage this need and programs in the future. In this video, we'll hear directly from the EPA on the new regulations, not only for containers, but also for bulk containment and other changes to current laws. Well, let's begin. The first thing a retailer needs to do is to inventory and inspect all mini-bulk containers in his possession. Everyone should have a copy of the trifold prepared by CropLife America, EPA, and the industry on how to safely clean refillable containers for recycling. Many dealers provide more custom application, and farms have grown larger, which all require more efficient delivery and handling of crop protection products. As a consequence, the use of mini-bulk containers has increased. This has resulted in reports of increasing numbers of damaged, obsolete, and/or unused mini-bulks. In a changing regulatory environment, the Iowa pilot worked to get these unused or obsolete containers back in the dealer's focus and cause a conscious decision to be made about their future. Once the containers have been evaluated, they should be segregated into groups. Those with no structural integrity should be at the top of the list to recycle. Those that would not be cost-effective to retrofit should be second, and those that are in use and meet pending regulations or can be updated to do so should be in the third group. The hardest task is cleaning the containers.
We recommend that you start by reading this brochure that has been approved by the ACRC and the EPA and follow its recommendations.
With personnel dressed in protective equipment, it is recommended that the inside of the container be washed to remove pesticide residue.
Through the years, most of these tanks have become dirty and discolored on the outside, but the big issue is what's still inside.
Discoloration may not mean that residue remains, but careful inspection is necessary to assure that the entire container is clean.
Color doesn't really have a determination in the cleaning process. The quality of the rinse-ate water that we get out of them is our indicator.
A hole may be drilled into the bottom of the tanks that cannot be cleaned through the ports or vents, but it should not jeopardize the structural integrity of the tank for hauling. Tanks should not be cut in half, as they will not be accepted for transportation and recycling. The water generated from cleaning should be captured and used as makeup water in future crop protection applications, in accordance with the label instructions. It is important to identify the last product that was in the tank to properly handle the rinse-ate. If the last use is unknown, it should be treated as a waste product. Once all tanks have been cleaned, those that the dealer views as clean should be segregated pending final inspection by the recycling contractor. In the Iowa pilot, retailers were contacted by the recycling contractor based on a form they sent in by fax or email, and the contractor, CSN, then arranged for inspection. Participants were invoiced $15 per container that was deemed acceptable for recycling. In Iowa, CSN came to each participating location to examine each tank put forth for recycling.
What's unique about this program as against other state programs is we're actually pre-inspecting at the site of the generation. So that way we can answer any questions that exist at that location. Also, if there's any problems or real hazardous chemistry, we leave it at the generation site and don't bring it to the collection site or the recycling center.
A tank that passed their inspection received an acceptance sticker and transport was arranged. Consolidating containers into truckloads at a collection point saves transportation costs and avoids extra transportation fees that result from less than truckload shipments. Arranging centralized collection points makes sense and saves money. Grinding of the mini-bulk containers was completed in Iowa. Coordination of the shipments allowed the recycler to efficiently handle a high volume of mini-bulks. The plastic for these containers must remain segregated from the post-consumer waste. End products from the recycling process should only be those approved by the Ag Container Recycling Council. One end-use product that is being widely used is drain tile for farm fields. The product often contains a percentage of recycled crop protection product container plastic and provides a beneficial use in agriculture. The regulations concerning intermediate bulk containers will go into effect in August of 2011. Nancy Fitz with the EPA Office of Pesticide Programs explains the areas that deal with mini-bulk or IBC containers.
As of August 2011, there will be 3 new sets of requirements for mini-bulk containers, stationary bulk containers, and repackaging. And these regulations are designed to ensure that containers are sturdy enough for the repeated use, as well as to minimize the potential for cross-contamination. For ag retailers, the biggest change is going to be for the new standards for mini-bulk containers, and they're going to need to look at all of their containers to see if they comply with the new standards. It is important for them to know that a lot of containers can be retrofit to come into compliance, and so if they're looking to buy new containers over the next few months, they should be sure to contact their pesticide manufacturer as well as their equipment supplier or tank manufacturer to make sure that they buy compliant containers. For the mini bulk containers, there are basically 4 requirements. The first is that they have to comply with the Department of Transportation or DOT requirements that we adopted at what DOT calls the Packing Group 3 level. This means that they have to be marked and comply with upfront testing requirements, which are basically the container manufacturer's responsibility. In addition, there are some periodic retesting that is required that the dealers can do themselves. For example, the large mini bulks have to be pressure tested every 2.5 years. The second major requirement is that the tanks need to be durably marked with a serial number or other identifying code. Third, each opening other than a vent needs to have a one-way valve, a tamper-evident device, or both on it. And then fourth, that the container has to be on the pesticide manufacturer's description of acceptable containers for that pesticide. In terms of retrofitting, it's important that retailers first determine whether the containers comply with that upfront DOT testing and marking requirement, because that one is very hard to come into compliance with or impossible if it doesn't comply already. However, if you have a DOT compliant container, it's easy to add a serial number, and there's a lot of equipment out available that can allow them to retrofit and come into compliance with the tamper-evident device or one-way valve requirement.
Well, that's the story from Iowa on the statewide pilot project to recycle mini-bulk containers.
Many warehouses now look like this. Only those bulk containers that meet the new regulations and need of the agri-dealers remain in service. The pilot conducted in Iowa was a success due to the support and cooperation of the State Agribusiness Association and its ag retailer members. If you are thinking about implementing a mini-bulk recycling project in your region or state, we suggest that you solicit the support of state agribusiness and government regulatory agencies. In addition, CropLife America, the Ag Container Recycling Council, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency can provide guidance materials relating to best practices for each step in the recycling process. For more information, contact the Ag Container Recycling Council at this email and telephone number.